Elvis Presley is back in the news, 40 years after he passed away. A vault, long thought to be locked and undiscovered inside Graceland's walls, has just been unearthed. Its contents are shrouded in mystery. Discover what's within. Do you have unreleased songs, private letters, or anything even more incredible? Everything we thought we knew about the king of rock and roll might be rewritten by this finding. In Tupelo, Mississippi, it was the wee hours of January 8, 1935. Vernon and his brother were present as Gladys Presley gave birth in a small two-room home. Jessie Garin, the first of her twins, was stillborn, and tragedy ensued. Just a few moments after that, a vibrant and boisterous baby named Elvis Aaron came into our world. Elvis, a healthy newborn boy, became Vernon and Gladys's sole child, and their love for him knew no bounds. Elvis was loved and cared for by his family, even though they were haunted by the death of his twin. Although their Tupelo house was on the smaller side, it was constantly bustling with family members, parents, grandparents, and extended family, who helped to foster a strong sense of community and camaraderie. Vernon and Gladys really wanted to provide a happy life for Elvis, but they were strapped for cash. Although they were always on the road in pursuit of better possibilities, he felt a feeling of security in their love and commitment. It didn't matter to the Presleys where they lived as long as they were together. To Elvis, music and worship were sources of bliss. The lectures and hymns played at home at the Assembly of God Church enchanted him. The gospel he heard at church, the blues his neighbors performed, and the country music he heard on the radio were all sounds that he absorbed. He carried his music with him everywhere he went when it became his love. Elvis had his first experience playing in front of an audience on October 3, 1945, when he was a mere 10-year-old. He sang Old Shep while perched on a chair in the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show Talent Contest, where he placed fifth and received a few fair ride tickets. Even though it wasn't a major award, it served as a source of pride and a preview of future successes. In 1947, 2 years later, Elvis wanted a brand new bicycle, but his family couldn't afford it. At Tupelo Hardware Company, Gladys softly led him toward a guitar that would cost him $13. That little instrument was the key that opened a musical door that would alter the course of history. In a memorable goodbye performance, Elvis sang "Leaf on a Tree" to his classmates at Milam Junior High. A big change was afoot for the Presley family. In their quest for a better life, they piled all of their possessions into an old Plymouth and drove off for Memphis, Tennessee. They weren't out there by themselves for long. The rest of the Smith and Presley families soon followed, each seeking a share in the American dream. However, reality was harsh. Elvis and his family resided in North Memphis, a neighborhood where resources were limited and living conditions were harsh, in public housing and tiny cheap houses from 1948 until 1953. While Elvis was at LC, Vernon and Gladys worked non-stop, switching jobs. Humes Junior High. Elvis helped out his folks out a bit by picking up odd jobs here and there. A close-knit family that relied on their religion and met frequently at the Assembly of God Church persevered through the trials. Music was a means of escape for Elvis. He found solace in his guitar, vocals, and unique flair. While lost in the melodies of gospel and black blues, he perused Beale Street seeking one-of-a-kind garments. He was easily identifiable by his long hair and sideburns among the downtown gospel musicians' preferred hangouts. Gospel concerts weren't the only places you might hear Elvis's music. Elvis Presley took the stage at Humes High School's talent event, guitar in hand. He was taken aback when the crowd went wild applauding, and he ended up winning the competition. He felt a surge of self-assurance as he left the stage after doing an encore due to the overwhelming applause. Unfortunately, this chapter was short-lived. By 1953, Elvis had completed his high school education at Humes. In order to provide for his family, he began working at Parker Machinist's shop very immediately. He dropped by the Memphis recording service, now called Sun Records, that summer. He recorded "My Happiness" and "That's When Your Heartaches Begin" for his mother Gladys as a touching birthday present for her, spending only $4. It wasn't much, but it was the first step toward a remarkable journey, the launch of his musical career. It was at this time that Sun Records founder Sam Phillips started to see something unique in Elvis. The young singer's voice had promise, and he thought Elvis might make it as a leading ballad singer. This was the turning point in Elvis's career as a musician. Things began to shift in 1955. Aside from his stunning good features, Elvis was drawing admirers with his distinctive voice and charismatic performance style. No matter where he played, his hip-swaying motions were sure to turn heads. It was in that year that Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, signed him to RCA Records, paving the way for his meteoric rise to fame. The inexorable ascent of Elvis Presley was in 1956. After the success of his debut album, Elvis Presley, which featured the single Heartbreak Hotel, he went on to win his second #1. He cemented his position as a multi-talented performer the same year when he inked a movie deal with Paramount Pictures. Although some thought his daring dancing techniques were too provocative, he was a huge hit with the crowds. After making his network television debut on Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey's The Jackie Gleason Show, he went on to become a regular on the show. Throughout his 6 concerts, Elvis gradually became a household name. Meanwhile, Elvis achieved yet another professional high point with his last Sun Records song, I Forgot to Remember to Forget, combined with Mystery Train. It reached #1 on the country charts, signaling a major turning point in his career, while Heartbreak Hotel ruled the charts. His first full-length album, Elvis Presley, including his early hits, was issued by RCA a few months later. After spending 10 weeks at the top of the pop charts, the record was clearly a hit. With its $1 million sales and first Gold Album Award, it was a watershed moment for Elvis's career. Elvis traveled to Hollywood for a film test at Paramount Studios only a few days following the album's release. He dedicated 2 days to acting and lip-syncing to Blue Suede Shoes, while also taking center stage in a sequence from the forthcoming film, The Rainmaker. Elvis was always on the go, and worked tirelessly to fulfill his aspirations during this flurry of activity. The odd setting of Elvis's performance on The Milton Berle Show, which was aired live from the USS Hancock, an aircraft carrier, caused quite a stir. It was only the start, though. Quickly, his schedule was becoming full. He inked a 1-film agreement with Paramount Pictures and Hal Wallace, with the option to make 6 additional films. Elvis Presley performed at the brand-new Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas in April and May 1956, but he failed to deliver his signature show. His younger supporters were more enthralled than the older gamblers in the audience. Nonetheless, both Heartbreak Hotel and Elvis Presley, his debut album, ruled the Billboard pop charts. The more concerts Elvis performed, the more famous he became. When a result of the hysteria caused by his high-energy performances, events were occasionally cut short when supporters stormed the stage. As of June, Elvis was performing in a more conventional studio setting on The Milton Berle Show, accompanied by the Jordanaires, Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and DJ Fontana. His daring dance techniques enthralled the younger audience but made parents and reviewers scratch their heads during his energetic performance of Hound Dog. This became one of his most talked-about performances due to the backlash, which further increased his renown. Conservative and religious groups were quick to criticize Elvis's daring musical and dancing styles, but his young fans couldn't get enough. As he continued to tour and release new songs, his popularity continued to rise. He continued unabated despite the uproar. Not long after that, he addressed the controversy surrounding his previous television appearance by appearing on The Steve Allen Show on NBC. While performing a comedic rendition of Hound Dog, Elvis, clad in a white tie and tails, sang to a basset hound on stage as part of the show's satirical take on the scenario. Elvis, despite his disapproval, participated in the prank and even showed his fun side by appearing in a comedy routine alongside Gene Kelly, Andy Griffith, and Steve Allen. The drama never stopped, and Elvis was always the target of criticism, yet his star continued to rise. An unprecedented $50,000 arrangement for future performances was inked by him, establishing a new benchmark in the entertainment industry. His fourth recording session with RCA took place the next day, during which he brought the Jordanaires, a famous gospel and country group. The Jordanaires continued to be his primary backup group far into the late 1960s, touring with him and even appearing in a few of his films. Elvis Presley's debut film, titled The Reno Brothers at the time, began filming in August 1956. In order to capitalize on the excitement around its popular single, the title was subsequently altered to Love Me Tender. The most popular TV show of the day, The Ed Sullivan Show, was where Elvis first appeared during shooting. Charles Colton took over hosting duties for Sullivan after his vehicle accident, and an astonishing 80% of the country's television viewers tuned in to see Elvis play. On September 26, 1956, just a few weeks after leaving Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis returned for a day of celebration. The city proclaimed it Elvis Presley Day. Accompanied by his family, he put on 2 performances at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show, the identical platform where he had once sang as a little child. Because of the high level of enthusiasm, the National Guard was sent in to regulate the throng. At this point, the nation was engulfed in Elvis mania. An era of celebrity commercialization began with his picture appearing on a wide variety of products, including caps, T-shirts, jeans, and more. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, and Elvis himself were innovators in capitalizing on the enthusiasm by making his likeness into a brand. Love Me Tender, Elvis Presley's first feature film, premiered in New York City's Paramount Theater on November 15, 1956. Not only was the picture a financial success, but reviews were mostly complimentary of his performance. The film, which took place during the Civil War, highlighted his singing and acting abilities, further establishing him as a multi-talented superstar. At the end of his hectic 1956, Elvis was featured on the top page of the Wall Street Journal. His unparalleled fame and the influence of Elvis mania were highlighted in the headline by the staggering $22 million in item sales alone. A watershed moment in Elvis Presley's career occurred in 1956. It was the year that catapulted him from international superstardom to international stardom. He became an overnight sensation, with records broken in music and television, and an acting career that took off. Merchandise carrying his name also sold like hotcakes. When he walked somewhere, the crowd went crazy. Elvis was now both a symbol of American youth culture and a divisive political figure. His magnetic stage presence and innovative musical style combinations sparked a cultural revolution. He was bringing in a new age by changing more than just music. He was also changing social mores. It was impossible to ignore the domino impact of his achievement. Nobody could turn a blind eye to Elvis Presley anymore. As a response to the uproar his movements had caused the previous year, the irony was obvious to all. On January 6th, Elvis made his third and last visit on The Ed Sullivan Show. This time, the cameras only captured him from the waist up. Ed Sullivan, a household personality in television, intervened live on air to ease the criticism after he included the gospel hymn Peace in the Valley in his 5-song program. He assured fans that the young star was a wonderful human being and an absolute delight to have on the show, praising Elvis's character. Amidst all the criticism Elvis was receiving, it was a rare instance of popular support. In the meanwhile, Elvis's stardom reached far beyond the United States. The New York Times stated that due to the official non-availability of Presley's music in the Soviet Union, his albums were being sold illegally. As a clever marketing move, fans made bootleg copies using discarded X-ray plates and sold them for 50 rubles, which is over $130 now. Elvis kept setting new records when he returned home. After spending a month at the top of the charts, his Christmas record went on to sell an incredible 20 million copies. His next single, Jailhouse Rock, which was based on his film of the same name, went on to become a smash hit. Even after all these years, it was still listed by Rolling Stone as the 216th best song of all time. The likes of Blue Suede Shoes, Can't Help Falling in Love, All Shook Up, Teddy Bear, and Are You Lonesome Tonight ensured that his audience was devoted to him. While he reveled in his ascent to stardom, a dramatic change was on the horizon. Elvis Presley gave his final show in Hawaii in November 1957, unaware that he was about to trade in his guitar for army boots. At the year's end, he and his family had decorated Graceland for their first Christmas there. His draft notification arrived in the middle of the celebrations. The news ushered in a significant new chapter in his life, and he had been eagerly awaiting it. Military duty and marriage, including being drafted into the U.S., despite serving in the military, Elvis Presley's career continued to soar. In March 1958, he reported to the Memphis Draft Board and had the famous GI buzz cut at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, marking the beginning of his military odyssey. He then proceeded to Fort Hood, Texas, for basic training, which lasted for 6 months. Elvis did not squander any time on his initial departure. While his brief comeback to music brought him delight, it was followed by tragic news. In what would turn out to be his final session until 1960, he produced the song "A Big Hunk of Love." His mom Gladys got severe hepatitis just as he was getting ready to go to Europe for deployment. A hospital in Memphis received her quickly. On August 12th, Elvis came to spend time with her during her last days after being given emergency leave. Tragically, he learned of Gladys's death on August 14th, following a short respite in Graceland. She was 46 years old. Elvis, engulfed in sorrow, mustered the will to resume his military responsibilities the very afternoon of her burial. Elvis discovered a spark of joy when stationed in Germany. Captain Joseph Beaulieu had been sent to the Wiesbaden Air Force Base, where he met Priscilla Beaulieu, a teenage girl whose husband had been sent there. At a social event, Priscilla and Elvis were met by a mutual acquaintance, beginning the love affair that would alter the course of their lives forever. They were married in Las Vegas in 1967 after a long and passionate courtship. As an Army officer, Elvis rose through the ranks to the rank of sergeant. On March 2, 1960, he returned to the United States and confronted the press in New Jersey, ending his chapter in the military. His formal release from active duty was granted by March 5th. Reporters and admirers flocked to Graceland upon his return to Memphis to greet him. Elvis addressed the media with humility during a press conference he gave in his father's office on March 8th. He had served his nation without favoritism, just like any other soldier, despite his enormous popularity. Despite the fact that his 2 years of military service were formative, he couldn't get rid of the persistent worry that his absence may have diminished his star power. But as the Graceland crowds proved, Elvis was certainly not forgotten. It didn't take Elvis long to go back into the limelight once he left the military in 1960. His score for GI hits like Blue Hawaii and Viva Las Vegas kept listeners glued to his music, and his album Blues topped the charts. Although not all of their films were well received by critics, they made a tidy sum, and their soundtracks were beloved by listeners. But Elvis's enchantment in the movies started to wear off by the late 60s. His career appeared to be at a turning point as audiences lost interest. However, Elvis was not yet prepared to retreat. In 1968, Elvis made a remarkable return with a TV spectacular that demonstrated once again why he was the undisputed ruler of rock and roll. His mesmerizing stage presence, charm, and voice demonstrated that he had not lost his touch. At the same time, his private life seemed to be flourishing. His daughter, Lisa Marie, was born to him and Priscilla in 1968. It appeared like Elvis had it all: fame, family, and a new beginning for a split second. Unfortunately, the joy was short-lived. His marriage started to exhibit signs of strain in the 1970s. Infidelity was a problem for both Elvis and Priscilla, and it caused their relationship to fall apart. After some time apart, Elvis dealt with his personal problems, and Priscilla took care of Lisa Marie. The year 1973 was a turning point in Elvis's life. His health started to deteriorate as a result of his heavy use of prescription drugs. The once slender star's health declined as he struggled with his weight. His condition deteriorated after that fall, and he wound himself in the hospital, quite a change from the energetic entertainer his fans had grown to adore. Elvis maintained his dominance on stage despite his personal problems. No matter where he went, the sold-out audiences from his Las Vegas concerts and tours continued to follow him. June 1977 was his last performance, and it was in Indianapolis. He went back to Graceland after that, all set to do another tour, but he had no idea that it would never happen. Tragically, Elvis Presley's tenure at Graceland ended on August 16, 1977. The king of rock and roll died when he was only 42 years old. Heart failure was the official cause of his death, and the usage of prescription drugs was a major contributing factor. Millions of admirers across the globe are mourning the passing of a living great after hearing the shocking news. Graceland was the site of Elvis's funeral, where he was put to rest with his family, Gladys, Vernon, and Minnie May Hood Presley. In his honor, the grounds became a site of pilgrimage for many. Transworld Delivery set a new national record for a single day in the United States on the day of his death, with more than 3,100 requests for flower tributes. On August 18th, 2 days later, thousands flocked to Memphis to attend Elvis's burial. Along Elvis Presley Boulevard, some 18,000 adoring admirers stood, each with a placard, flower, or memento in hand. His followers' overwhelming love and adoration for him was symbolized by the white Cadillac hearse that carried his casket, which was adorned with roses. In contrast to the crush of mourners on the streets, Graceland hosted a private service for about 200 loved ones. John Wayne, Caroline Kennedy, Anne Murray, Burt Reynolds, and countless more Hollywood heavy hitters were there to pay their respects to the man whose legacy will live on forever in the entertainment industry. The funeral was solemn and peaceful, but the rumors and questions about Elvis's life continued long after he passed away. His legacy continues to inspire both jubilation and intrigue, even after he passed away. The unexpected passing of Elvis Presley on August 16, 1977, shocked the globe and devastated his legion of devoted followers. However, the mystery surrounding his death was further complicated by a strange occurrence that occurred only 9 days after his burial, an unsuccessful attempt at grave robbing. 3 men, Ronnie Atkins, Eugene Nelson, and Raymond Green, were discovered loitering around Elvis's tomb late at night. Reports indicated that they planned to use explosives to break into the tomb, which sparked suspicions due to their actions. On the other hand, they were short on explosives and so failed. Their unusual behavior was reported to the authorities by a cemetery worker. Despite the group's obvious lack of preparation, the police managed to seize a small quantity of explosives. Ronnie Atkins's reputation collapsed following his imprisonment for fraud, but he subsequently turned informant, identifying his collaborators. Consequently, the 3 were not prosecuted. Long after the fact, Atkins proposed an unexpected change. He argued that a law enforcement official collaborating with Elvis's family may have orchestrated the whole conspiracy. Graceland lacked the necessary legal approval for burials, despite the Presley family's wishes, according to Atkins. In order to make a case for more protection, he proposed that Sheriff Billy Talley work with the family to stage a phony heist attempt. Regardless of its veracity, the narrative further added to the enigmas surrounding Elvis's legacy. Fans and conspiracy theorists went into a tailspin throughout the years as whispers circulated regarding intentions to disclose his grave. Despite his passing, the world remained enthralled with Elvis's life and the site of his burial. Elvis Presley's grave and the mysteries surrounding it are just as interesting, if not more so, than the king himself. Fans and those who believe in conspiracies have speculated for years that the Presley family may provide information regarding his tomb. According to certain beliefs, Elvis may have even staged his own suicide. The etching on Elvis's gravestone is one of the most talked-about clues. Contrary to what was shown on his birth certificate, his middle name, Aaron, was spelled with 2 A's. Some saw this as an intentional signal, a coded message implying the king's grave wasn't actually located there. While some see the typo as conspiratorial, Others note that Elvis started adopting the name Aaron later in life and brush it off as accidental. In 2005, during an appearance with Oprah Winfrey, there was another purported indication. As Priscilla Presley reflected about Elvis's connection with their daughter, she seemed to make a mistake, referring to him in the present tense, but she swiftly corrected herself. The idea that Elvis may be alive and well gained momentum at this period. Similarly, Lisa Marie Presley's 2003 interview with Larry King left fans wondering about her word choice when she avoided answering the issue of whether she felt a spiritual connection to her father. Whether driven by sincere conviction or an inability to part with their idol, these views have perpetuated Elvis's legacy in a distinctive and sometimes perplexing manner. The thought that the king may be alive and well is an irresistible allure for a large number of people. Following his funeral, speculation started circulating that Elvis had orchestrated his own abduction. Despite the fact that doctors had confirmed his death, there were those who claimed the king had staged his own assassination in order to avoid the spotlight. Many people in North America have reported seeing Elvis throughout the years. The Elvis Sighting Society was even established in 1989, with the express purpose of documenting such assertions. In 1990, one of the most notorious hypotheses surfaced when viewers of Home Alone pointed to a man wearing a turtleneck and beard in the backdrop of an airport scene. Some thought the man was the king himself, making a sneak appearance because of his Elvis likeness. Paranormal investigator Ben Radford was among several skeptics who swiftly discredited the assertion. If Elvis had gone to such measures to fake his death, Radford wondered why he would so nonchalantly appear as an extra in a big-budget film. Not only that, but he noted that not a single person on set seemed to know the face of arguably the most renowned person in history. To put a stop to the rumor mill, Home Alone director Chris Columbus verified that the man in question was really Gary Richard Groth, an extra and close friend of Columbus's, and not Elvis. Speculation was further fueled in 1988 when a Nashville radio station offered $1 million to anyone who could get Elvis to conduct a live interview. Either getting him to come out of hiding or putting an end to the rumors were the goals of the stunt. A quirky video game called Less Manly in Search of the King was inspired by the search. Players may virtually seek for Elvis and claim the reward in this game, which came out in 1990. Elvis Presley's mystery has only grown as a result of the ceaseless debate surrounding his disappearance and if he genuinely faked it, or whether he is honestly resting quietly at Graceland. His life and legacy have captivated people for decades, and that attraction shows no signs of abating.